would call myself an avid reader. Like, I read a lot of books, but I have one problem. Once the book is finished, I do not remember anything about it. I like to read a lot, and I like to recommend books to my friends. The problem is that when I love a book and I recommend it to my friends, and my friends actually end up reading them, and then they come back to me and they're like, what do you think about character A and B and the big plot twist that happened back then and then? And I have no idea what they're talking about. But I found 7 books this year that I did not have this problem with. So that means the plot was so good or the book was so memorable that it actually stuck with me. And today I want to share them with you. I'm going to mention the books in no particular order. They are not my top 7 of 2024. They are just the books that I still remember the plot of after more than a couple of weeks. And yeah, I enjoyed these books and I think you'll enjoy them as well. Also, I read all of my books on e-reader. This is my Kindle. I have my Kobo next to my bed because I'm reading something on my Kobo as well. I do not own a lot of physical copies of books. So I'm gonna show you guys a picture of the book here instead of showing you a gorgeous bound copy of the book because I just don't have them. I don't enjoy reading physical copies. Okay, so the first book I want to mention is A Magical Girl Retires by Park Seo-joon. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. So the plot of A Magical Girl Retires is about a 29-year-old girl or woman that tries to unalive herself by jumping off a bridge, but this attempt gets interrupted by a magical girl who claims that she is looking for the most powerful magical girl of all time, and that she had a vision in which she thinks that the main protagonist is that girl that she's looking for. I think this was the first book I've read by a Korean author, even though I consume a lot of Korean media. Like I listen to K-pop, I watch a lot of K-dramas, but I had never read a book by a Korean author. And I think that I have to, like, I already put a few Korean authors on my TBR to read because the style of how it was written was very unique. The book was written in a very clever but subtle way, and I loved how it tackled very realistic themes while giving it a sort of whimsical feel to it. I also loved that I had never read a book about magical girls before. Like, I've seen animes, I've read comics about magical girls, but I've never read a book about a magical girl. Which brings me to the next book called Hench, which is about superheroes in a book. Hench by Nathalie Zina Welschot. I have the tendency to pronounce that last name in Dutch because I am Dutch, but I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. I am so sorry. Hench is about Anna, which is a minion for hire in a world where superheroes and supervillains are real. So she works for a temp agency and gets hired by villains to do like the minion work, and she gets caught in the crossfire between the superhero and the supervillain and gets injured during the process. And the book was really well written. I think I read it all in 2 days maybe, and I flew through the pages. I also loved how Anna was clever in a way that I wish I was clever. She looks at the world in a very, I don't know, like, not that I would want to look at the world in that way, but I felt for her. I followed her logic, and I just loved being her through the book. Talking about identifying with main characters in the book, the next ones is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. The plot of The Naturals follows Cassie, a young girl who is very good at reading people. So she sees tiny details and fills in what that says about you and why, what, and how. You can identify it with like a female mentalist kind of situation. And that is kind of what happens. The FBI notices this talent and recruits her to help them solve initially cold cases, but in the end they just solve serial murder cases. It is kind of like a Criminal Minds young adult series, and even though I don't prefer reading about very young characters anymore, especially in situations that I'm like, as an adult I would have trouble handling it, I really enjoyed reading this, even though Cassie is 17. As someone who wanted to become a profiler while growing up, I kind of felt like I could live my childhood fantasy through the Natural series, which kind of sounds horrible to say out loud because Cassie goes through like shit, but it's just, I wanted to be a profiler, and Casey actually ends up becoming a profiler. And this whole series, like I said, it was top 7 books, but this is a series from like 4 books and 1 prequel. It's just a really nice read. Like, I think I read the whole series in a week, and it's fast paced, it's fun. Whenever it lulls down, it picks up the pace again very fast, and it's just really nice. If you are into thrillers, if you like the profiler, the criminal minds, if you like that, you will love this book as well. And then the next book I want to share with you guys is the book What Lies in the Woods by Kate Ellis Marshall. And this book really kickstarted a craving for thrillers that I haven't been able to satisfy since then. It's about Naomi, who as an 11-year-old gets stabbed 17 times in the woods while she's playing there with her 2 friends. Naomi survives the attack, and together with her 2 friends, they identify the person who stabbed her and put him away for life. The book starts like 22 years later, after the man they pinpointed as the serial killer dies in prison, and Naomi goes back to the town to figure out what really happened back then when she was in the woods. This book kickstarted my obsession with finding a good thriller, and it just really scratched that itch. It has some good plot twists. Some I saw coming, some I was like surprised, which isn't an easy feat for a thriller for me to do. Usually I see the plot twists coming up. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by where the plot went. I like Naomi as well, even though I like Naomi as well. She's a good female protagonist, and the side characters are also interesting. It just keeps you guessing, as like it was the kind of thriller that makes you want to keep on reading to see where it goes. And yeah, it has some good female rage in it. It has some good female rage in it, and it has some like spoopy elements. And yeah, I just really enjoyed reading this book, and it's a thriller where I will remember the plot for a long time. The next book is also a spoopy kind of read. It's called Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I think it's a really popular TikTok book as well. I don't know where I found it or who recommended it to me, but I am very grateful. The plot is about Maggie, who after 25 years or something goes back to the house where earlier her dad and her mom lived, and her dad wrote a book about that house because it was haunted. So they left the house 25 years ago because it was haunted and they had to leave it. And her dad wrote a book about that. And the book flips between Maggie 25 years later coming back to the house after her dad died, and the point of view from the book written by her dad 25 years ago. I don't know how to explain this book without accidentally spoiling stuff. The point of view from her now and the book her dad wrote 25 years ago, and the switching between those two make for a really interesting read, because you keep getting pulled into different directions on what to believe. I really recommend this one if you're in for like a spoopy, horror-y kind of book. And then the last book I want to recommend is by Rachel Gillig. It's actually 2 books. It's 1 and 2. It's called One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. It's a dark fantasy kind of book with a really unique vibe. The plot is about Elspeth, who has a monster inside of her head, which she calls the Nightmare, and the Nightmare keeps her secrets. This is a dark fantasy book with a medieval kind of background, and it has such a unique vibe. The magical system is unlike anything I've ever encountered. But I really loved the way it was explained and how you get like introduced to the world, which I thought was a very unique world. It has some romance in it. I think it's a slow burn, but it's not the main point of the book. Like, it is a fantasy book with a lot of action, a lot of plot twist, very, very high fantasy feel, but in a very unique kind of way. And I remember finishing these 2 books and being desperate for something like this, and I could not find it. So if you have any recommendations with like not the same magic system or the same, but like the same vibe of this, like the dark, gritty, but still, yeah, I don't know. If you read this book, let me know if you know anything like it, because after this book, I fell into like a reading slump for months because I couldn't find anything like it. And then, thank God, I found the thriller genre and hooked into that. That's why there are a lot of thriller recommendations into this as well. So those were 7-ish books, because there were 2 series recommendations in it that I still remember the plot of, and I would still be able to, if one of my friends talked to me about it, I would still remember what they were about. And yeah, I really enjoyed reading these, and I hope you found something you would want to try or would like to recommend to me. If you think like, oh, you like that book, then definitely check this book out. Please let me know, because I'm always on the hunt for new books to read, and I love getting recommendations. So thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and let me know if you'd like me doing book reviews or if you want to see something else.